good chance it might not start till like 1.
Donald next weekend. That's a nice hat.
Okay. Well, I've started it.
Okay.
But if it,
But I just arrived.
it's like a really long time, you can stop it and restart it.
I didn't press record on
Did you set up ours?
I did. I'll press record on everything. Sorry.
It's a big title, really.
Just let me know if you have preference on the state message, otherwise I'll
I'm the new director. So you took over. I took over Kelly.
Yeah, so I think there's going to be a little breakdown and then we come up with topics. We will be deeper and report out from each table. So I'm happy to do that, but I think I'm the only person. I think I'm the only one. I put a moderator on there.
do what?
So you still are making it? Yeah. Decided to stay there.
Thank you. Yes, of course. I just need to see it here. I spoke with my manager.
So she's I guess yes, Tarboro would be a lot. Yes, so I actually take her from Chatham County across to the lake to go to Alaska. In the sun. But I'm almost there by now. Do you live in Durham?
Okay, so are you guys mostly a remote organization work? You also work for
Fully, we are three laptops.
Okay. So small.
I'm in Richmond, Arthur and Ellie's in DC.
Okay, cool.
So
Was it a project that you guys together?
So yeah, I was at Walsh.
That's right. You already know.
The old guy. In that crew, I left in 2019. I think you're the youngest. Sorry. And we worked together for 4 of those years, something like that. And then they stayed on for 2 years. Like gone.
Hey y'all, thank you for being here. You are in the Stronger Together session here on building trust and creating win-win solutions for farmers. So if that's not the session you meant to be at, you can go to the other rooms, but I think you're in the right place. So thank y'all for being here, and thank you as well for making history with us at the first Growing Stronger Communities Conference today. So round of applause to y'all for making history. Thank y'all so much. So just a disclosure real quick, we are going to record the audio from the sessions as well, so that after the fact, we can do a little synopsis, summary, send those out too for those who didn't make the right choice and come to this room in the first place, so they can get a feel for how that went, and we're doing that in the other sessions as well. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Charles Parrish. I'm the VP of Agriculture here at Interfaith Food Shuttle. A lot went into today. So many people, I can't thank them all by names, but very excited for the panel and the great set of speakers that we've got lined up for you today. So I'm here representing the Food Shuttle. We've also got Athan Barkoukis, the Executive Director of Farmer Food Share's Food Hub here in Durham, North Carolina. Crain, VP of Food Procurement at Food Bank Central Eastern North Carolina, based from Raleigh, Mr. Larry Davis from Davis Farm, Sandy Creek, also in North Carolina, and then Colleen Hanlon-Smith, our northernmost attendee from Maine, with Farm to Neighbor Maine. So thank you all for agreeing to speak with us today. So, without further ado, I'll just give you a little outline of the session. So really, as the title suggests, this session is centered around the farmer. You know, so much of the work that we do is maybe farmer adjacent, or talks about agriculture. Maybe we have a farm, maybe we don't. But so many of us do or want to work more with farmers. And so really, we're trying to center the conversation today, and the lens through which we're looking at this conversation is really centered around the farmer. And as y'all know, farmers come in all shapes and sizes. So while we do have one farmer here on our panel, you know, who I think is very representative of many different styles of farming. You know, just remember that there are so many flavors. And so we have many other farmers in the room too. So as we go into our table time breakouts, that'll be a great opportunity to connect with them and really see it's not a one size fits all. But see if we can distill some of the things that would be helpful as we work with farmers throughout our different communities across the nation. So, you know, this is about building trust. And trust is built on a foundation of good communication. Not just good communication, but actually following through on what we say, as well as getting to a mutual understanding to know what we're up against, and to give each other the benefit of the doubt when things don't go as planned, you know. But having that trust, building those relationships that take time, and sustaining those. So that's what we're going to be talking about here today. So once we do a little one by one for each speaker, we're going to go out to breakouts. Each table has a notepad, and there'll be a central question or guiding question at each table. And we just want to take a moment real quick to ask the room, you know, what resonates with you about this session, about this topic, about the work you're doing right now. And let's get one question from each table. We've got our lovely moderator here is going to be recording those questions, and then when we break out, you can go to that table for the question that you like. So, for the first 5 lucky ones of you to volunteer, what is a question that you would like to answer with your table partners today? No wrong answers. It's a question.
I'll go.
All right, and we'll make sure, since we're recording, that everybody speaks into the mic.
Happily. I think one thing when talking about grower relationships and food banks and food security and kind of the space we work in is how we can be a better solution for each other. And what some of those creative opportunities are to be solutions, to be partners at farms at a lot of different scales too. So how are you a good partner? And how can we be a good partner for our farm? And how can we be a farm be a good partner for you?
Thank you.
6 questions, sorry y'all.
Yes.
I have one too, and I'll stay seated because I'm balancing a couple of things here. But I think my question would be, how do we build or use our social capital to support continuous sustainable funding for farmers and market outlets?
Great question. Thank you.
Can you repeat that?
It's how we leverage our social capital and our connections to create like market outlets for farmers. So yeah.
Did I see a hand up? Yes.
I'm looking kind of similar to what you guys are saying, but we have a lot of small farmers, a lot of farmers that can't, I guess, go to scale with what we need. I'm 4 years into food banking, so I'm looking like, what are the ways that I can make this a win-win? How can this win for both of us? I haven't seen the
food banks and farmers, win-win situation, how to create them.
Yes. It's not limited just to food banks. We have representatives from other types of food institutions, other potential partner organizations too, maybe even between farmers. All right, that's 3, right? 2 more? Once we knock these out, we can get going. Yes, Sarah.
I guess on that too, as someone who works at a food bank but works with small farmers and food hubs, that pivotal connection between the food hub and the food bank and breaking down the myths that might stop those two, is how to have them join and grow the food system instead of be siloed.
Thank you. Yes, all right, last but not least, don't worry, there's be more opportunity for questions today. This isn't the 5th and final one.
I guess when we talk about win-win, I'm thinking about metrics of success that won't just speak to, public sector, but also corporate, getting corporate investment, corporate buy-in.
Thank you so much. All right, appreciate y'all sharing what's on your mind and giving us some food for thought too as we speak with y'all today. So let's see here where we are. I think it is now time to welcome Mr. Davis up here to speak a little bit about your farm, your operation, and anything else you'd like to share with us today.
Okay. Thank you, Charles. Let's just click on this. Is there a mouse? Right here. Okay, thank you. So good afternoon to everyone. Good to see all of you. And I want to really thank Charles, Parrish, and Interfaith. And Charles came out to the farm, and I first met him over at Central North Carolina Food Bank at a event, and we clicked. And then he called me and invited me to this conference and said, "Do you want to present?" But they were so kind, and he was so kind, I couldn't turn him down. And so that's why I'm here today. And so thank you all for being here. I have truly enjoyed. I don't know if you all are, but I'm really amazed, and I've been moved by this conference. Yeah. And to know that it is an initial, in my life, I'm 75, I'll share that with you guys. I've been to many conferences all over the country, and in fact all over many other countries of the world. And most of the time when they put one together for the first time, it's a mess. But this has been a really good, well-organized event, if I can say so myself. So my hat is off to Interfaith and the partners that have partnered with them to put this together. So my name is Larry Davis, as Charles said, and I'm a farmer in Warren County, North Carolina, which is in central Piedmont section of North Carolina. We're right off of Interstate 85, and we're right at the Virginia-North Carolina line. And we have a farm there that I'm going to tell you a little bit about. All farms have a history. Family farm. They are a living and breathing entity. And so they really, like all of us, they have a beginning. And our farm and the people and my family on that farm, we have been farming in the area that I'm farming right now since the 1790s. My great-great-grandfather, Ptolemy Davis and Betty Davis, I traced them back through the records in Warren County offices on the wills of the owners of those two. They're listed there, along with all of my uncles and aunts and cousins during the 18th century. And so we've been farming now in the same area that I walk every day for 225 years. And it was a 6,000 acre plantation. It was a 6,000 acre plantation. My uncle Albert Davis, in the early turn of the century, purchased a portion of that plantation, and that's what's called the Davis Farm now. And I created an LLC later on to manage the farm. My cousins are gone. They're gone, and so they've left me holding this bag, but they're very supportive of me. I'm gonna stick pretty close to my notes because I love to talk, as you can see. And Charles is only giving me 10 minutes, and if I'm not careful, I'll go way over that. So I'm gonna try to stay close to my notes. And I've told you a little bit about the farm, and so I'm gonna skip through this. Oh, here we go. Let me go back. Davis Farm, Sandy Creek, Vance and Warren County. Larry and Sandra Faye Davis, and if I stand here and not tell you about my wonderful, beautiful wife, Sandra Faye Davis, then I would be very, very wrong. That's the person who has been there to help me in this enterprise. Quickly, I came out of telecommunications, IBM, New York, Wall Street, Park Avenue, corporate environment, and came back home. And so Faye, when I told her what I was gonna do, we had retired. She looked at me like I was crazy. But she's been there, she's with me all the way in all of the trials and tribulations and troubles that we have had, and the successes that we've had in bringing the old farm back together. I'm gonna take you now on a tour of the farm, a farm visit. And so the pictures that you're seeing right now, you're looking out at the farm and activity on the farm. The tractors, we're plowing, we're making roads right now. This is kind of walking you through as you we used that long building, we have two of them. We used to raise Purdue chickens. It's about 40,000 of them. We have a pond, the old pond on the farm, and sweet corn. That year we raised sweet corn. We have one of those machines that you saw, if some of you saw one, that's some lettuce that we were growing in our high tunnel. And bok choy, cabbage, which I love now. I am a bok choy cabbage fan. That's my brother Sam, and we're harvesting. And my other brother-in-law Sam, and that's collards. And that's a field of kale that we planted, and cantaloupes. And we usually plant a couple of 100 acres of cantaloupes and watermelons. And and this is hay. This is this is a hemp hay. And there was a point in time on our farm, and we're going to talk about diversity, that we actually packaged food. We packaged meats and sold them from the farm. And so that's a tour of the farm. That's a little quick tour of what and activities on the farm. And we're proud of where we brought the farm from. The farm had gone into disrepair. My cousin Sonny was there. He was 90 years old. When I came there in 2013, nothing was going on the farm. I mean, it was all going downhill, but I had this great idea. I was going to help him. And so a lot of what you're seeing is us bringing the farm back from a very low state. And so anytime my IBM training tells me, anytime you're going to do something, you need to have a vision, and you need to have a mission. You need to know what you're thinking. What is this thing that you see you're about to do? And so we created a simple vision statement. And basically what our farm is all about is to maintain a viable agricultural business that is an asset to our community. That's what farmers, local farmers, that's our heart. Our heart is in the community. We may sell to Interfaith, we may sell to Cisco, but our love is always in the people around us, those people that come and pick our vegetables up locally. And of course, the other part of our vision is to successfully operate this farm enterprise and manage it so that the resources are really being used to their fullest extent. We want to have an agribusiness. We're expanding, and I didn't tell you guys this, our farm is 200 acres. of air property, and then another 50 acres that we lease. So it's about a 250 acre farm. So it is an agribusiness. Our goal and mission is to deliver high quality fruit, vegetables, livestock, grain, and food related products to the consumers, to our consumers and customers. And then one of the things that I saw this today, and I don't want to get too lengthy with it, but it really touched my heart to see how there was a vision of bringing young people and other folks into agribusiness and to local farms and assuming responsibility for that. And so on our farm, we created a farm trust so that there's a succession plan for our farm. Some of the things, guys, for a local farmer, small farmers, I'm talking to you so you have a sense of what we're faced with, small and medium-sized farmers, and I know those are the ones in the room are gonna be familiar with this. Every year we have to ask ourselves a series of questions, every year. And some of those questions up here, I'm not gonna go through the whole list for one of time, but just some of them. What are our short and long-term goals for the farm? And every year you have short goals, what do you wanna accomplish, and then there are long goals, even in that year. And then of course you've got goals that are beyond that. So that is one of the things any farmer has to keep uppermost in their mind. How do we plan to grow and diversify? I don't care if you have 1 acre, a high tunnel, or you have 100 or 200 acres. You've gotta wanna be thinking about, I'm just growing tomatoes. Is that all I'm gonna do? So you wanna be thinking about how you can diversify that, your farm, and then you wanna ask yourself, what new crops, technologies, or practices do you wanna consider to incorporate into your farm? How are we planning to maintain and improve the aesthetic beauty of the farm? How do you keep up that farm? We had to go out and buy a bush hog, 15 with bush hog, because I only had a 6-foot one, 5-foot one, and it was something trying to keep the farm looking great. But who's gonna take the farm into the future? How do you see the trend, and this is one of the things we think about, how do you see the trend of farm to table or direct to consumer sales evolving? Because see, this is one of the things, small guys, we have to think about that. How do we've got food to the table, but then we've got to look at larger markets as we do that, and other direct to consumer sales. And then a couple of things we want to talk about is how do we balance work, family, and personal life in the future. Let me tell you something, if you got a family, you've got a wife, farmers, you need to know how you're gonna balance that life, because something is gonna go wrong. Some of the goals, and I'm just gonna use my notes here now, because we have like a lot of goals. Okay, 2 minutes. We are gonna just, one of the things you gotta do on a farm, you gotta have goals. You gotta have a marketing plan and a production plan. And what I'm gonna do is, Charles is saying 2 minutes, he said you guys are gonna have access to this. We deal with a lot of folk in our farm regarding marketing goals, our marketing goals, entities like Working Landscapes and Byway Foods, Interfaith, Farmers Food Share, the picture here, I was just telling my friend at the table, they came out to the farm and we struck up a relationship with them some years ago. And the other thing you need to have as a small farmer, you've got to have a farm production and services plan. You've got to know what you're producing, how you're producing, what your input costs are, what are your input techniques are going to be. And then there's a series of questions that every small and medium farmer has to ask him or herself. What are you selling? How are you going to sell it? Are you going to sell direct to consumer, direct to customer, direct to consumer, direct to, is it going to be wholesale, retail, farmers market, or you're going to have a combination of all of that? So those are questions that go through a farmer's market. And finally, this thing here, every farmer has to have a financial vision. We've been in here all day, I've heard everybody talk about, if you're a farmer and you don't have a financial vision, your farm is going to fail. And in that vision, you've got to have a business plan, you've got to have a financial plan, you've got to have a labor plan, you've got to know the plan has to include what equipment and other things you need to get your product to the market. And that is something that you gotta work every year. We have a business plan that we think, well, I try to stay on top of it. But that is key, seriously key to any successful farm. Whether you're 1 acre or 200 acres, that is an important function of farming. And so closing, I want to just say to you guys, and Charles and I have talked, and I've talked to others about it, transparency is key. We've got to communicate with one another. The farmer, a lot of times we feel lonely. We actually feel lonesome. We feel isolated from all of the other large things going on and around us, and we get frustrated. We get to the point where we just don't know whether we can continue. But I am encouraged, and it's a be encouraged by this type of environment where I see all of you guys coming together to support us. And we thank God for it. We do. We thank God for folks like you, for food hubs, for food collaborators, for pantries, for all the other entities that will allow us to offer our products to you all, and to our individual customers, our walk-ins we call them, and our food markets that we have in our different communities. So we thank you. We just really thank you for being there for us, because the future is going to get tough. So you guys got to help us out, okay? Okay?
I would like to welcome Mr. Carter Crain up as well. Yeah, if you haven't seen Learning Hub, check it out. They have a lot of great resources there from Feeding America. That's right.
Yeah, Carter Crain, Food Bank for Central and East Carolina, right here in Raleigh. Going to take a few minutes to share kind of who we are, what we do, kind of our relationship with Interfaith Food Shuttle here locally also. And then I just see a lot of great partners in the room, so thank you for, it's good to see peers, and it's good to see other nonprofits that we partner with, Society of St. Andrews, Michael Binger in the back. If you all haven't met him, please meet him. And then it's so good to see other food banks and financial donors as well in the spaces we all try to learn together. I think when Charles came to us, or came to me, it's one of the people on the panel, what do we want to learn? And for me, I want to learn more about what everyone else is doing. How do we collaborate better? This LFPA really jump-started our space into the small farmer world. We've never been a food bank that was in with small farmers. We were navigating excess. We were a zero-cost food bank for a long time before we even stepped into pick and pack out costs. So the small farm space with LFPA and the fair market value was a really new space for us to get into. But it's been such a great space, and so now we're trying to figure out how do we stay in this space. Where is our sweet spot in this space? Fundraising is a challenge now. Federal funds are a challenge now. So where do we find out where we belong in this space, and how do we navigate it, and where do we add the most value? Do I punch my own slides probably? Or wink at you every time we move forward. This is our service area. We cover 34 counties in North Carolina. For those of you who don't know, there's 100 counties in North Carolina. We cover 34, about a third of the state, 600,000 people in need in our service area. We do that with 6 warehouses where the stars are, to try to spread out that distribution and logistics as much as possible. Raleigh is a hub. It's kind of where most of our trucks are sent, and then we kind of fair share our food out from there. For example, Wake County has about 20% of our poverty population, so we want 1 of every 20 pounds to go into Wake County. We do better at that because we have a good relationship with our friends at the Food Shuttle. We don't meet all that need, but we know they're also putting food into that county. Helps us feel better about spreading that out even more. We can go to the next slide. So a lot of people ask, how do y'all work with the Food Shuttle? We're both Feeding America food banks. We share 7 counties. We developed this graph for another presentation we did. So we're both under the Feeding America umbrella. We both have partner agencies. Some are shared, some are not. We talk a lot, especially on the food sourcing side of that, where we're not knocking on the same donors, especially food. When a retailer comes in, we go back and forth. Who does it work for? Kind of the next person would have first right of refusal if it just doesn't make sense logistically. So we really talk a lot. We share numbers now for the first time in our history of about 4 years ago, we started sharing numbers so we know what pounds of food are going to each of the shared counties, which has really just opened up our working relationship together. Again, if we're low on a county, but they're strong in that county, we don't feel like we need to put more resources into that county because we know another partner that we share information with is doing that work together. So it's not a competition. It's really good. It's about trust and building relationships and that communication piece that we were talking about, just like the farmers. I'm sure you guys know about this. What do? We support 650 partner agencies. We believe that food is right for everybody. No one should go hungry. People facing hunger at the center of our decisions. I mean, we're here talking about farms, but we're also talking about the people that we're serving, right? What is best for the neighbors in the community that need this food? That's where local food just plays such a part. We do a lot of produce. We did 114 million pounds of food last year. Half of that was produce. We do that with a lot of local North Carolina farms, and then through the LFPA funding, we've been able to do a lot more with the small and medium-sized farmers. We also have a program that was birthed out of the pandemic called North Carolina Local Love, which we were doing a lot of farm to agency relationships already. It was still bigger farms. I saw someone else into that too. Oh yeah, produce spots. Bailey. Also just a great partner, bringing in small farmers, making deliveries in Wake County through another grant that we've been working with. Just an incredible partnership, just another partnership. It doesn't always have to be on our trucks. It doesn't always have to be through our warehouses. Bailey is uniquely working with small farms. Wake County came to us with some funding, but they really wanted to work with small farmers. And Bailey kind of reshuffled what she was doing to help make that connection work. And that she believed in the program, she believed in the work that we were doing, she heard Wake County what they needed, and she redesigned her program to fit the needs of that grant, which has been great. So again, partnerships, trust, relationships. We try to not put our farmers in a box that we work with. We understand that they have their own logistics that they're trying to figure out, their own pros and cons that they need to work through. We had a farmer come to us about 8 years ago. He's kind of a normal food donor, would call us when he had something. He told about 1 year with watermelons, and we were like, yeah, let's get those watermelons. He lost his market for them. Gave him some, I don't know, probably 8 to 10 cents a pound on those watermelons that he lost. And then he came to us a few months later and was like, I'd really like to get out of the business of farming. I'm like, oh no, that's not good. Like, you're a great partner. Don't do that. And he's like, no, I don't, you know what I mean? I'd like to grow just for the food bank. And that was kind of our step into planned ag. We've been able to grow that relationship where now he's growing about 300 acres just for us. He's not selling anymore, and so he's still making his living. It's more expensive than navigating excess for the food bankers that are trying to navigate that 10 to 12 cents a pound. It's more than that. It's probably closer to 16 to 18 cents a pound, but it's planned ag. We know when it's coming. We know what's coming. We can have trailers on site. Again, that's what worked for him, and we figured out how it worked for us, and he does a lot of deliveries straight to our partner agencies as well. It's just been a really good learning experience. When we start with a farmer, we try to, what are you growing already? Good morning. What are you growing already? Let's get some wins there. And then, he's started to step into some culturally familiar foods, some tomatoes, some cilantro, some broccoli this year, stepping into some other things that stretches him too. So that's been exciting. Don't have any more slides? Random, again, kind of what we did last year, 47% produce science and 50%. Shouldn't have done that. Our goal was 50%. Where does our food come from? For those of you that don't know, again, we have a lot of food bankers in here. But again, how do we work with small farms? Where is our sweet spot? It's about relationships, communication, trust, growing together, getting wins that make sense for both, not starting too big. We were talking about how to start a relationship early this morning. And it's not, we don't want to start big. We want to get some wins. We want to see what works for the farm, what works for us, and how do we do that without learning from each other, finding our space. We can't do everything. And then balancing navigating excess. Again, we support 650 agencies and over 500,000 people. We can't do everything with small farms, but that doesn't mean we can't do anything with small farms. We need each other, and we need to figure out where to invest in the community. How do we do that in the best way possible? Good.
Thank you. Just real quick before we introduce our next panelist, I want to give a shout out to Alexei Holovan, who's basically our carter at Interfaith Food Shuttle. He's got to leave here shortly, but got a few cards from him too if you want to connect. We do have another few farmers in the room too, besides Mr. Davis that I just want to recognize, and Mr. Hines. We also have Mr. Cotton here today, Pastor Joyner, a number of farmers that are currently partnering or formerly partnering and are seeking more opportunities. So please just connect with one of these gentlemen and these folks today if you're looking at partnering with our farmers. Okay, thank you. You want to say a few words?
Yeah, here I am. My name is Alex. I'm a VP of Operations in Food Shuttle, and I oversee the program of purchasing of local produce. So if we can cooperate together in order to feed our community, it would be a win-win situation for all of us. So thank you.
Okay. And now I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Athan Barkoukis to talk about Farmer Food Share and how they're partnering with a number of local farmers in the area as well. Yeah, I got you.
If not, that's okay.
I saw a presentation called Farmer Food Share.
Did you think?
Yeah.
This is why.
Right there. Right in your farm area.
You're really organized.
I mean that, those are organized products.
It takes a village. Appreciate you. Well, good luck with that.
Alrighty, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Athan Barkoukis. I am the new executive director at Farmer Food Share, 4 months in today, actually. So super excited. We are a Durham, North Carolina-based nonprofit food hub, and our mission is to increase access to fresh local produce for all, while supporting the viability of marginalized farmers to create a more equitable food system. So what does that mean? If you go one more. So how does it work? So our food hub is based in Durham. We have a warehouse, office, cold storage, and a whole fleet of trucks. And the focus is, because we are so uniquely situated in the state, we send those trucks out from the mountains to the sea, 4 hours in either direction. And we will help pick up the produce from our small to mid-sized farmers, let them focus in the fields and farming. We do have a couple that come to us, but most of the produce we go get right from them. We create those institutional buyers, the wholesale markets for them. We bring it all back to Durham, and then we sell quite a bit. We have a 5-year contract with Durham Public Schools, a number of universities, markets, restaurants, you name it, and working with 60 to 70 farmers across the state. That is a win-win in terms of our ability to support them. And we reinvest the proceeds along with our donations and grants and other philanthropic contributions into a number of programs, which I'll highlight right here. So we do a lot in the food access. We work with 20 to 30 different community partners who help fund, and we put together boxes, medium and large size boxes of fresh produce, changes throughout the year. And because we're in an incredibly amazing ag state, being able to provide fresh produce throughout the year, and we send those boxes again to partners like Porch and Table if you're in North Carolina. So many, Emmanuel Food Pantry, they're feeding hundreds and thousands of people on a weekly basis. They get to augment those with non-perishable produce that they might get from the food pantry, and so it's really well-rounded for those families. We also have a Food as Medicine program that I'll be talking about in our next session, but Wake County, where you're in right now, had a commitment. They're county commissioners in a program called Nourishing Wake, And so we are providing culturally tailored boxes of produce to hundreds of food insecure patients around the county, and it's a real win-win. We are fiscal agents for a Double Bucks program. I'm sure many of you have a similar program. So almost $500,000 that we have been distributing to our farmers markets around the Triangle area, really to enhance the opportunity both for our community members that are on SNAP to have access to more food, but then to purchase more from our local farmers that are at their markets. We have a community-supported agriculture program, so a subscription program, and this year we tripled the number from last year of participants, and it was so amazing. Our drop-off pickup location was our offices in right downtown Durham, and how many community members just walked to our building. And what an incredible opportunity to get to know our literally get to know our neighbors as they came up and got fresh produce from us. And then we also have a farm to early child care program. We are servicing 18 child care centers across Wake County, custom ordered boxes of produce so that these infants to 5-year-olds get access to fresh produce. And that is all bought and purchased by local and mid-sized farmers. Last slide, or second to last. Again, the session about relationships. We could not do this without our relationships, and we've been around for 15 years building incredible relationships with our farmers. We focus on fair pricing. We asked our farmers, what do you want to sell your produce for? If it's a little way off, we share with them what some of our other farmers are selling and try to navigate that. But definitely our social commitment to supporting farmers. Problem solving, a lot going on, and so if some of our farmers are having challenges, earlier this year, Western North Carolina experienced a massive hailstorm. A lot of our farms were negatively impacted. We connected them with some of our institutional buyers to develop solutions so that that produce would not go to waste, that those buyers could then use it. So that's wonderful. And innovative purchasing, just on the phone with another institutional buyer last week who specifically wants to purchase seconds from our farmers. So making that connection to those farmers who are willing and interested to reduce waste and put more money into our farmers and food onto their table. And last slide, just a little impact from 2024. So we worked with 61 farmers directly with our food purchasing and over 200 through all of our programs, which included the Double Bucks with all the farmers markets. A whopping 87% of our farmers are new farmers, women-owned, BIPOC, so incredible support, and we reinvested $1.6 million into those farmers in 2024. 33 counties, that's 1/3 of the state that we are working in, and through that, again, we were able to buy about 1.4 million pounds, which equates to 1 million meals of fresh produce distributed to our food insecure families across the Triangle area. We couldn't do all this without all of our community partners, our farmers, our funders. Everything is critical to our success and our community success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nathan. Great to see this work that y'all are doing here at Farmer Food Share. And last but not least, you've heard from a bit of our traditional institutions, food banks, food hubs, but I wanted to bring in Colleen here to talk a bit about another innovative solution now that's kind of born out of the wake of LFPA going away, and so how Farm to Neighbor Maine is navigating that. As an example we can all learn from. See if it works this time. It does.
Sorry guys, hi, Colleen, here from Maine, and I'm going to give a couple examples of, I'm actually going to talk about what my day job is, and then talk about Farm to Neighbor Maine, because it really talks about the foundation of the win-win and the relationships that have been built up that have allowed for us to create a response to the loss of LFPA funding that is called Farm to Neighbor Maine. And if you're interested in knowing kind of the ins and outs of policy and next moves with Farm to Neighbor Maine, we actually have a Staying Resilient session that's happening next that I'll be on the panel of as well. So we'd love to tell you about some of the foundational work that I've been doing. I've been working in Maine at the intersection of farm viability and food access for the last 2 decades.
in a variety of different capacities, first starting the statewide farmers market organization and working on retail markets, and then finding a need and a desire from farm partners to grow into wholesale markets, which has really been the focus for the last 10 plus years for me. And next slide, please. And how I do that and what my day job is I'm owner of these two companies, Daybreak Growers Alliance. I co-own with my friend and farmer down the road, Adrian Lee, who's an organic vegetable and flower grower. And I own Peak Season Maine, and these two are sister businesses. And so Daybreak Growers Alliance has a 900-member customized year-round farm box program, providing a year-round diet to 30 different central pickup locations throughout the state. Daybreak was an LFPA recipient in Maine as part of an umbrella of food access programming that we have. And then Peak Season does wholesale distribution throughout the state. And so we work together on the aggregation, warehousing, trucking, services to be able to really optimize a lot of the operations and streamline a lot of the intent is to streamline what the farmer needs to do to sell to multiple markets at once. And so the other thing worth noting is our largest growing customer segment of Peak Season is K through 12 schools. So we're serving over 60 public schools right now in 13 of 16 Maine's counties, and very excited to see that finally gaining traction in the state. And so together between these two businesses, we work with over 100 Maine farmers and food producers to create, again, a year-round diet and food access to the people of Maine. And we focus on having the most optimized routes that we can, so that as we work in the middle, our footprint in distribution is as small as possible in sort of the post-production steps that food takes from the farm to the consumer. Go to the next slide, and if we have extra time, then that's not a problem. So this is my passion project and collaboration with folks. So Daybreak was one of 9 entities in Maine that received LFPA funds. Is everyone in the room familiar with, okay, I'm seeing a lot of head nods. So this is the federal funding, USDA funding, that allowed for the purchase of product from farms, the distribution to hunger relief organizations. I think I'm in a crowd of friends who probably all know this, and many of you have been affected by it. So on March 7th, when that federal funding freeze announcement happened to both LFPA and LFS, obviously that affects both of my businesses. And whereas many were deeply reliant on that funding, up to 70% of their sales income, both of these businesses are viable without that funding. And so I knew that actually partners throughout the state were in a much worse situation than we were in. And so I made some phone calls to everyone else that lost funding. I asked if they wanted to gather together to both collaboratively fundraise and do advocacy around what had happened. And we specifically wanted to focus on LFPA because there is no state funding equivalent, and because we knew that the impact to growers, specifically marginalized growers and BIPOC growers in our state, was going to be a very heavy hit, whereas Local Food for Schools has a counterpart in Maine called the Local Food Fund, where actually our state in response doubled down on that amount of funding. So this was really where the need was. And unbelievably, these farmers who just lost 70% of their markets and had already decided we're going to grow, this is what we do, and had already, I mean, this is Batula, who came from Somalia by way of Dadaab, who I met when I was a college student in Lewiston in 2008, and had worked for 15 years to form a cooperative farm called New Roots with 3 other growers. You know, taking the risk that these farmers did to say, we are going to join together in response to this, as opposed to sort of carve out our piece of the pie, has been incredibly humbling and an amazing experience to be working together on this. So I think when talking about, and you can go to the next slide, this here, so this is like a little social media thing we did with a bunch of our farmers, right? To raise public awareness. So we had a Ready to Grow campaign with a bunch of our different farm partners, and just wanted to show some of the faces of the farmers who can't be here today, but are part of 125 different farmers that were really reliant on this funding, from our friends up at Mi'kmaq Farm, native-owned farms, to immigrant-owned New Roots, to organizations that are supporting refugee and immigrant farmers, to multi-generational growers downstate from us. So these people are amazing, and you people are amazing, and then might tear up, but next slide. So I just want to speak to a couple things, and Athan spoke to some of them, but I just want to talk about how this trust is garnered and why these farmers would want to take this leap, right? So a critical part of what we do is crop and menu planning. So we are not only telling the farms an idea of what market they have in the spring, but we literally have a spreadsheet and template for each farm, where, having worked with many of these farmers for many years, they have all really dialed in what crops they're going to grow. So they're no longer growing 40 different crops, and most of these farmers are farming on 5 acres on average. We're talking about very small scale farmers. And so by working together, what was market competition became specializing in different crops, not only through the crop planning process that feeds both daybreak and peak season, but they specialized in those crops for the rest of the market. So they were no longer competing against each other in the marketplace, but really, whether it's their soil type, their equipment, their level of specialization, what they like to grow, really perfecting that over time. And over the years we've worked together. And then how it works for us is the same as it would work for a farmer, where we have market diversification. So I oversee purchasing across both of these businesses, so that when I crop plan with these farmers, there's an ability to not just be reliant on one market, but be able to, similar to like what you were saying, Larry, anticipate where's the market going next year, and where are the opportunities, and how can I piece together this, how can we piece together this picture in collaboration with these farmers to be able to assure them of this market and guarantee that market through these different avenues for next year. So psyched to be here with all of you, and just thankful for all of the work you all are doing, and thanks for the opportunity to let me tell you a little bit about what we're doing in Maine.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening to our speakers here. So we've got a good amount of time left in the session. So for now, we're going to revert here to what we call table time. So take a moment to digest what you just heard, ruminate on that, and then either at the table you're at, you should have a question written down on your notepad. If you like that question, feel free to stay there. If you want to get up and go find another table, meet some new people too, that's totally okay. So take a moment and go find your question there. And then there's going to be a little table time guide there with guiding questions and things to really get into the activity. And then our moderator is going to be bouncing around to the different tables to facilitate as needed, and I'll come around to do the same. So, all right. Oh yeah, if somebody from each table would please just announce the question real quick. What do we have over here?
This is your I might need to decipher what I wrote.
Okay.
I know, take a peek. This table is about how to create these win-win situations between farmers, food banks, and other institutions. This table here is about how do we counter some of the myths and misconceptions around food banks and food systems. And please stop me if I put any words in your mouth, whoever said these questions. This one says, how do we leverage our social capital to create markets? Is that what you said? Okay, great. And then last one, how can we be a good partner for and with farmers?
Don't all go at once. Okay, so once you make it to your table there,
Sorry. If y'all go up to a table and it looks like it's already full, feel free to pull up a chair, because there's more people here than there are chairs at the table, so totally fine.
This is the guy
I guess it makes sense if you're physically isolated too, like.
So did you have anything?
So my dad knows what's going on. He was a farmer, but I was a farmer. He's farming and everything, and lost a farm. But I would say, he didn't want to burn the family, so he couldn't talk to somebody else to talk to the family because it's a pride thing. And I can just say for the most farmers, I know that it's like North Carolina, it's like distrust community for anything that is schools, right? So many comes down from the previous generation. You need to kind of stand on your own and take care of your family and like trying to build a business. And so like it's overcoming this like distrust. You gotta build that trust and survive, but then survive there was that cut. I don't mean that word in a negative way, but like
So maybe like psychosocial support, you know, so that insurance doesn't.
Not just
using our connections to route these farmers to the markets. So that's really my question. It's like, why don't we do that? You know, why are we doing that? What's limiting us?
And I'm not saying it's about across the board.
Yeah, how
But when hurricane,
something like that to help
Lawrence
farmers
hit,
find something.
I was working with somebody who was just state, and I was thinking it was hard to stay. So the farmers, a lot of them didn't even know where to go to get help. Or they didn't have the knowledge and skills to even be given this fill out the application. I think. So then it was like posting sessions to try to help. That isn't good for me. I want to data. You said that you were from so it's just and then that's right. What are the growouts? And then being able to say, I need help doing this. Right? So just back to
So I'm with the element.
and not knowing where the resources are, and then not and having to navigate through that complex line to get to ask for help.
Like, right, I'm sitting here, I can
So to kind of help us out really hard to ask about too. This wasn't work with second service,
like being the
but
convener
I have
of
one of my
using that
good friends
social
works at
capital, and not just social capital, but also
and they did a research study on
distribution expertise, browsing.
so I think there's an international network too, in Tennessee.
So kind of how to,
How
similar to Food Shuttle would be the convener
You know, it was-
for those topics.
I think it was important. We talked about representation, and I know we often are talking about representation, but I think it was important what people think of as a traditional farmer, being the person saying, I can call this number and I get help. Because then it opens the door for anybody, kind of like you're saying, but especially as well. Never on somebody's like, say, I'm for you, that it doesn't have. And then guaranteed purchasing, being somebody who says, so I send quarterly emails to my clients, I try not to send them, unless it's like, oh, God, your invoice, whatever, when I send out mass things, I try to say things that I always put sometimes.
Welcome to North Carolina.
Oh my gosh, you're somewhere that you can connect with. I'm hearing from other people that they're also struggling with the drought, with the, you know, like,
and I have a website where it has just all the things that they would need, like that, our bid process links and everything. But I update a little news portion that's like, hey, it's super hot this week, super cold, hope you're, you know, doing all right with the cold snap, whatever. And when people email me, they will have looked at that site and they'll be like, I mentioned the cold snap, this is how I'm feeling. It's just a very easy low stakes runway for them to talk about whatever they need to, and then they end up kind of talking about things that aren't work related. My family has this going on, my wife, etc. And that is working.
Wendy Stewart, Washington DC.
Like filling out the transactions.
Yes,
You know, even just like putting it, like you would reach out and be like, oh my god, it's cold, how are you? But it's not like, oh, it's cold, you're out there all day, how are you?
Yeah.
That's still there.
Beyond the transaction, we talk about the relationships.
I'm with
Farmers, and when this program started and what it is now, and the ones that are transactional, they have fallen away, and it's not to say that we are
they in partnership space together.
we're not their ideal.
How do we support them?
We have found for a few years the ones that still are the ones who are willing to open up. They need
personally right now is
somebody to just kind of chat with them, but also they have a heart.
conveniences,
Which I think
about that a lot.
that's been one of the things
of the power that we've been having in the community.
Not to, we work with folks with LSCA and
Monica, I'm the
we were told maybe 7 to 8. I was in a food bank when it started. Don't so we had some people
getting it all in my head.
how I am able to do this. And when we talked about that, they weren't prepared to say the price on it out to what we found.
Because to me, that sounds low for what I'm
I'm Casey, I'm just here for volunteer. I actually work at PAZ, so this was a volunteer opportunity of mine. I'm new to this whole space, although I am a volunteer at a really small entry farm where I live. It's been amazing and inspiring to be here and to be around like-minded folks and just have to soak it all up. I can also take notes for you guys. I heard a couple things that we need right now. You were saying something about demand side.
They fall away because they're like, you need all this friendship and, you know, and then learning about my life. I just want someone to sell my extra. Which is what all we ever
I'm curious, you raised the question, could you like give a little more context, like, is there behavior where?
But that might still be a lot.
Yeah,
So
I think we started off, we were part of the Building about the Homeless Regional Crisis Center, and so working in Texas and New Mexico, and our portion at the food bank. To support government-sized farmers and either maintain or scale their production to market markets. So that's where we started. We didn't quite finish that in our council. But I think as we were thinking about that, the value chain coordination really like stood out too. Where it's like to sell to who has those connections.
I think we tend to have boards. So when I have office work,
the community,
and I try to do as possible, I will also say, I realize you would rather be on. So if you could take 5 minutes to explain whatever it is think about, like, is it possible? I'm acknowledging it. I realize what I'm asking. So when you have one take, response, and then if they're ready, when they call, they first of all, they call instead of just ignoring. Yeah. It's like, sometimes people, they're able to call you, sorry, I can't reply, and they're doing it like, and I think that's a plus Texas. You know, I was proud of the system that we built to purchase from farmers, but building it was essentially so that you can handle people don't want to operate or just sometimes have to operate outside of it. Like, is there an option where they didn't go to plan as a soft hand to another situation?
Yeah, he went at a warehouse with cold storage full of trucks. At a distance, you'd be hard to say, is that a food bank?
That's a question I have. What does it look like?
Which for our growth,
Do you have any examples? It's a question I have. What do you think? Like, what is the difference? Like, what would get us highly sure? So I think that part of it is like, trying to like really differentiate, like, how is that different?
I think there's the family farmers. Some do, yes. It is not a given that they do or that it's on their radar. So it's not a big thing. Some things have very large responsibilities. So is the food hubbing piece, the supply chain piece, someone's one core job? Will they pay attention to it? I feel like, it's certainly scoped right, but does it become part of the mission, or should it remain separate because food banks are doing this and food hubs are moving food around, possibly to pantries, but also to others. So, I don't know. I met with some folks in county right next to DC that were deciding whether to build a food hub or a food bank, and they were using both in the same sentence, and couldn't really define what either one was. So, that's a problem. Yeah. So, there's already a lack of clarity and understanding around what both of them do. So, does it muddle things, or is there a way to create efficiencies where food banks can manage supply chains and do some food hubs, pieces of what we do? It's a big question.
Would like a co-op do that?
Sometimes co-ops give me pause because they either work or they don't. Because everyone has to buy in or they don't.
But I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
All right.
I think there are
If I can have everybody's attention, please.
I think I am on the school.
Finish up that thought. We're gonna be bringing everybody back together here. Alright. Cool. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take turns and just quickly go around from table to table and give a 30-second synopsis. 30-second synopsis of what the main takeaways from our conversation was that you can share with the room. Okay? So we're gonna start up here. And so the question was how to counter myths and misconceptions around food banks and how food banks and food hubs specifically can work together, and what would that look like? So Susan, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. So we didn't do the first question. We went into this, how are food hubs and food banks working together, and we're asked a really great question. What is the difference between a food bank and a food hub? And just talking about that was really interesting because there's so many similarities in the aggregation of product and organization of that and distribution, obviously. So then we started talking about how can we leverage the infrastructure better. So cold storage, trucks, warehousing space, logistics, supply chain management, that kind of hard and soft infrastructure better to support both of the outcomes, the different kinds of outcomes that food hubs and food banks are aiming for.
Thank you, Suzanne. Okay. Now, who's the speaker from this table? You are the lucky winner. Okay.
So at our table, it was how to create win-win solutions between farmers, food banks, and institutions. And so we had 4 kind of themes that came up. The first one, and the way I'm going to do this is kind of give a little summary and ask Farmer Donald, who is with us, to elaborate anymore, as well as Alex, because there was a lot of collaboration here between his farm and his neighbor, Shuttle. So the first one was crop planning, which we heard from our speakers as well today. And it was really based on the relationship that they have together. And the important thing is knowing the planting season so that both parties are understanding and knowing what the agreement is, how much is going to be planted and harvested, and when. And Farmer Donald said that the trust is really, really very, very important. And if you heard him earlier today, he had started a crop and then that person couldn't deliver at the end, and that put him in a bit of a bind. So having the trust that he can have with the partners is very, very important, and that crop planning is really key. Anything else you want to add?
Said it good.
Okay. Number 2 was pricing. And we had a question here from a table mate who said, you know, she heard 7%, 12%, 16% a pound, and really raised this question about pricing. And what Farmer Donald again said is the fair market values is what people really try to go by, and it's based on those marketing trends. So it's being able to work with Interface Food Shuttle and him, taking a look at the fair market values and coming up with something that's going to be appropriate for both sides. That's kind of that win-win. Anything else? Pretty good. The third one was planning. We had a question here, thinking of how does the farmer think of the consumer at the end, and kind of culturally helpful foods and nutritious foods. And you had mentioned that you're a very diversified farmer, and so you're not just, you know, farming just one thing, like say a sweet potato. You're growing 15 things, so that you have many vegetables to be able to offer. And he feels like that's very, very important, and it's actually working, I think, for your farm. Anything else to add?
Great job.
And the last one, I don't know that I caught this one too well, but it was kind of this topic of gleaning and being able to kind of take the food. So I am going to ask you to explain.
So gleaning generally occurs in the field after you, as the farmer, have completed your cropping of that produce or product, and the gleaners are usually volunteers. They'll come to your farm and they'll pick that and distribute and donate that. And so timing is a factor. A lot of things I do is according to a plant and harvest schedule, and so it's important for me to make it available to them ahead of time so they can plan. So I've got a crop plan, they've got a glean plan. So that's you know, that relationship is important. But I also mentioned that I won't sell everything I pick, so they may not have to glean everything. They can come to the packing house, and some of the items I've not been able to sell, they could take that and distribute it as well.
Thank you, Bill. Yes, really quick.
I hope it's appropriate,
Yes,
but
it's about for you. So,
please tell me if I'm wrong, but I do a lot of gleaning on farm sites, and there's a whole farm etiquette piece that how to be a good farm guest on somebody's business that is very important to consider to continue being invited back. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
thank you, Alexa. And on that note, I want to just quickly shout out Mr. Michael Dinger here from Society St. Andrews. You want to say a couple words about
I'll say
gleaning?
like 2 words real quick. Yeah, that's what we do. So we organize gleaning events across Southeast and into the Midwest. Yes, relationship with farmers and catering to each of their in particular needs. Understanding the FSMA rules and other food safety rules that they're having to work at the farm level, and making sure the volunteers are trained and know how to respect that as they're going and carry the food out in a safe way. All very important parts. And anytime you're dealing with groups of volunteers, you are herding cats. And so understanding that there's a little bit of that, but that the most important relationship there is with the farmer and care for what they need in that event. So, yeah.
Appreciate it. Okay, now quickly, we'll do 30 seconds from this table. Who's going to be your speaker?
30 seconds, all right. So we talked about what makes a good partner with farmers. We talked a lot about transparency. You know, if you come to them with an idea, the transparent information that that idea may not work. If they come to you with an idea, that may not work. But that transparency helps build good programs over time. We talked a lot about moving beyond the transactional, so making sure that you aren't just a transactional partner. Farmers, like it's a real range of growers that you work with, from people who just want to text you and you're going to hear from them 10 times a year, but they're a very loyal partner, all the way to ones that you talk with every single day, and you may not realize it, but you may be the only person that they talk to every single day, and that importance of that check-in and that balance. And then the other one, the food bank of the Ozarks, as you can just see your shirt. But Alexa provided is doing a thank you breakfast. So she shared that they do an off-season breakfast where they bring their growers in and invite them into the food bank, Your growers may not realize it, you may not realize it, your growers have never seen your nonprofit space, and they don't know they send food to you, but to bring them in and show them your coolers and infrastructure, meet the agencies, do like some of that, to see the impact, it can really help them paint a really great picture. And then to take the time to say thank you and cook them a home cooked meal, it's just phenomenal. That was more than 30 seconds.
Thank you, perfect. All right, last but not least, who is our lovely speaker? All right.
So, I plus one everything Susan's table said, because I think we had a very similar conversation. The question here was, how do we leverage social capital to create markets? And the overwhelming theme of our table was, if you squint at a food hub and you squint at a food bank from a distance, you'll see a warehouse with cold storage and a fleet of trucks, and you might have trouble telling which you're looking at. But in addition to having similar infrastructure, they're both positioned as locusts within complex systems that need to have dozens of relationships with buyers and food access sites and dozens of relationships with farmers and suppliers. So we also ended with, can a food bank be a food hub? Can a food hub be a food bank?
Even more questions. Well, on that note, thank you all for taking time to come together at your tables in this session. One thing that we also wanted to include was a panel Q&A with some questions prepared, some questions from y'all as well. And don't know us at Food Shuttle, our missions feed, teach, grow, and cultivate innovative solutions in the Congo. So that innovation part is what we're going to do right now, because it is break time. But we're going to innovate and take a little bit of break time if you would like to stay for some Q&A. I will have to take a laptop here in a few minutes, but we've got a few extra minutes. Are there any questions from the audience for our speakers or to the room? We have a lot of expertise here. Yes. And please just, if you would, speak into the microphone so we can record you.
Hi, I had a question for Colleen. So you mentioned that in your model, many of the farms are specialized. So how do you handle risk that may pop up on an individual farm if they're not diversified?
I'm so glad that you're asking this, because they are highly diversified, but it's not, yeah, but I'm not gonna, just in case. I'm so glad you asked, because I was like wanting to respond to you, Donaldson, because it's not that they're monocropping, right? But it's not that they're like growing every single thing in the Johnny's catalog like they were in year 1 and year 2. So there's a sweet spot in there that might be anywhere in the 8 to 20 crop range. So it's still a very diversified farm. There's still fields that are laid fallow or that have crop rotation, or it's still the same model in ways, but it's also really honing in on those crops that are best suited for that farm, and often that realize the greatest net margin for that farm as well. Yeah, cool. And we were just talking about that too, and it's the sweet spot, right? It's like, don't grow everything, but don't just grow a small amount. There's something right there. Yeah.
Excellent. Who's next? We'll all go at once.
This is all new to me, but I thought it was really interesting and this came up at the table in the back here, about sometimes the lonesomeness and the loneliness that you spoke of. That had never even occurred to me. I mean, I'm probably ignorant of that, but I just was curious about what types of interventions, or I come from the public health world, so intervention is my term, but what sort of activities or experiences would you and maybe other farmers find to be useful or like uplifting to deal with that sense of lonesomeness?
Excellent question. I believe the first place you start is with who your partner is. In my case, my wife. My relationship with her is what sustains me during the really hard times. So whether that might be your farm partner or someone close to you, because farming is intense. Farming gets to really put a serious mental and physical burden on you during the year. You sit there and don't think anyone's there to help. So you gotta have someone that you feel like you can share with. And that's really, really gonna be important, because the worst person is an isolated farmer who has no one to talk to, doesn't know where he can go or seek counsel or advice. So that person or persons, that's what I would suggest people say.
Thank you for that question. Susan?
Okay, I'm notorious for like doorknobbing a big question at the end of a time space. So apologies for this. But I'm curious, I mean, what we've been hearing a lot about is like what works really well. We're hearing beautiful stories of, you know, accomplishments, and like, let's get real. At the end of the day, there are very big differences in what food banks are trying to accomplish and what food hubs are. And, you know, with one being really committed, obviously, to getting food to community in need, and one really committed to getting fair prices for farmers. And we know that there's conflict in that intention. So can you speak to some of that conflict and how you're working through it? Because I know that sitting in a national role, I can see that happening everywhere, but people don't really want to talk about it.
Thank you for that question. Was that directed at anybody?
It's whoever would like to answer that
All
question.
right. Yeah, Colleen.
Not to pocket, but that's like dead on, right? I'll just hold it a little bit further away. Can everyone hear me okay? That's exactly it. So especially with everything that we're all going through right now, I think at the next conference, talking about pricing will be very, very, very important, because that is the difference between whether we actually shift the needle on hunger or not. So there is, and I'm sure it's the case in all of your states and with all of the work that you're doing, but this crisis happening right now, this desire to get as many canned perishables out the door as possible, and maybe they need a nutritional equivalent, but it's not reinvesting that in the local economy, it's not reinvesting that in our farmers, so it's not actually going to shift the needle on the work that we need to do. And so when we talk about a food bank or a food hub, I agree, what we really need to talk about is it hunger relief, is it farm viability, or is it both, and where do the priorities lie? And there is this sort of first glance temptation to say we want as much food as we can get for as cheap as possible when it comes to hunger relief, and that's understandable and important, but it is not supporting our local food systems, and a very important thing to be taken into consideration.
Thank you. Carter?
I was just thinking, we're trying to figure out that balance of stretching the dollars and investing the dollars, and I think we, as food banks, we need to get better at storytelling and fundraising and try to figure out what that sweet spot is, because we support a lot of people, and so we need that excess that's really cheap that used to get dumped in the woods or tilled under or whatever, but we also need to support our local food system and try to support those small farmers in those communities where our agencies are, because that food that those local agencies are getting from their local farmers, like that story is so important on site at those agencies, and how do we do that without funding is tough. And no, the funding doesn't always need to flow through Feed America, but the food banks, pantries can do that, farms can do that, other community efforts can do that, but how do we collaborate to figure that out is still, I think, something we're all talking about and trying to figure out. But I think we're trying to take a percentage of funding that comes in and putting it into buckets for our small farmers and trying to make those connections is how we are starting to try to stay into it. But again, we are a food bank that is not even thinking about this 10 years ago, right? So it's a big learning curve for us.
Thank you. All right. We'll wrap it up with one more question. Who wants the final word? No more questions? Okay, awesome. Well, thank you all so much for coming to this session today.